Seattle Kraken are making a change here. They've relieved head coach Dave Hakstol of his duties out there, and the Seattle Kraken, I mean, I don't know what to make of this, fellas. Dano, you brought this up earlier when we were talking about it. They've had some good moments, some not so good moments, and I kind of felt like he was going to get a little bit more. Like maybe this next year would have been the deciding year, but they decided to go elsewhere.
I tell you, it's not for the faint of heart to be a National Hockey League coach today, right? I just read or heard that's 18 coaches in the last 13 months in the National Hockey League that have lost their jobs, something along those lines. It's unbelievable. Look, Dave Hakstol, last year, it's
Game 7, round 2.
It's what have you done for me lately? Because great year last year, surprise year. Nobody thought they had that good of a roster. Well, they ended up having a very deep team. Everybody contributed. They beat the Colorado Avalanche, the Stanley Cup defending champs at the time in 7. Take Dallas all the way to the end. And this year, well, what did you expect? I would have expected them to take a step back, but we're not in the room and what coaches are hearing and seeing. Yes, was it a step back? But that's pretty tough because you'd have to think he's done a pretty good job for the most part. But yeah, it was a big step back this year. I would have thought maybe he deserved a little more time, but that's just not the way it is anymore in the National Hockey League. It's win now, baby.
Yeah.
And teams think they can, get right back to being a playoff team.
And you want it seems like nowadays too, you want to shake things up with your group. It's generally the coach that gets shaken up.
Yeah, easy to fire the coach than to fire any of the players at this point. And, it seems like you said, Daniel, coaches are getting hired to be fired right now. It's just your shelf life is so short. Every team expects to be competitive. I remember when they hired him in the first place, it was a little surprising because it was an expansion team, maybe a big name, a big splash, and he was kind of an under-the-radar choice. I don't think a lot of people expected it. And as you said, he got great results last year, some really good moments for that franchise. But I think when you looked at the numbers, they overachieved a little bit last year in terms of their on-ice shooting percentage and things like that.
That was off the charts.
Right, so you expected a little bit of regression, but maybe obviously ownership and management felt that there was too much regression and that they wanted to be more in the hunt this year and make the playoffs. So, again, we don't know, as you said, what goes on behind those walls, but clearly they weren't happy with his performance this year and felt the team could use another direction going into next season.
So we got, as we stand now, a couple coaching vacancies, maybe more by the end of the playoffs here, but there's some of the names that are out there. I mean, it's a pretty good list of coaches there. We've heard Craig Berube's name coming up with a lot of these teams. Dan Bilesma, who he was in Coachella with their American League team, Seattle. So seeing if maybe he would get elevated. But what do you guys think of this list?
Well, a lot of experience. I mean, with Gallant and Berube, everybody says, well, we're going to recycle all these coaches. Well, there's a reason you do, because they're experienced and they've been through it. And they learn along the way as well. And guys on that board have had some success. In particular, I would think Craig Berube's high on a lot of people's list. I mean, the guy brought a Stanley Cup championship to the St. Louis Blues, and they hadn't won in their existence in 50 years. Yeah. So I always said with Craig Berube, while they were kicking him out the door and firing him, they should have built a statue for him at the same time, right in front of the arena.
Very true. Very true.
Because what he was able to accomplish there. And I think he will have his pick of the litter.
And the thing that I think with Craig Berube, the interesting thing, and just to pick him out of this group, because there's a lot of great coaches there, you need an identity. We always talk about it. And this is still a young franchise that I don't really know what to make of them. And maybe that's the thing that kind of caught up Dave Hakstol in that group there, because we saw them, were they a defensive team that was going to shut it down, kind of play that boring brand, lean on those types of things, but then in year 2, we saw him scoring a ton of goals, one of the league's best with putting the puck in the net. And then there was that drop-off last year. I don't know if we know who they are. I think that's really big for them to build here.
But isn't that to be expected?
Yeah.
Because they've only been in the league a few years. I mean, Vegas set the bar way too high, and they are riverboat gamblers, just like where they play in Las Vegas, and they've done a great job of winning. They wanted to win quick, they wanted to win now, and they weren't afraid to take some chances and risks along the way and spend a lot of money at the same time, and they've had great success, but we'll see which way Seattle goes here.
Yeah, and I think a result of all these firings and hirings is that you create a cycle of, there are a lot of good coaches out there at any given moment. So when you're the Seattle Kraken, you sit there and say, well, can we do better than Dave Hakstol? And then you look at those names, Berube, Bilesma, Gallant, you sort of say, oh, these guys are out there, maybe not for long. So we got to jump on these guys while we have them, because guys are getting cycled in and out all the time. So I think there's more good coaches available than ever before because they're getting let go so frequently. So I think some teams look at their opportunity to strike before somebody else picks up a really good coach, and you don't want to be left behind and say, hey, it's good, but can we do better? So I don't think they're resting on their laurels or just happy with the status quo. Can we make a shift? And we got these guys out there who are experienced and cup winners, and yeah, let's bring in a different message or a different identity, and these guys can do that.
And Dano, you mentioned about all those coaches. What was it? The 18 coaches last 13 months?
Yeah.
Is that there might
If I heard that correctly today,
and there
blew me away hearing
Yeah.
that. Blew me
Yeah.
away hearing that.
And unfortunately, with the playoffs, there may be more. So
More,
part
right.
of it's about, hey, let's get things situated, run through these coaches, and figure out who's best for us. But that's the news coming out of Seattle.